Welcome to Botches Off-Road. Join us today as we talk about everything from gear reviews to trail stories, tent camping to rock landing, and all things to do with the outdoors. Today is going to be a little solo episode. I wanted to kind of get this out there while it was fresh for me, while I still have a young child. And, the episode's going to be surrounded around, taking your kid out camping, hiking, and overlanding for the first couple times. Some tips and tricks, some advice that I'm willing to give you. You can cherry pick what you want out of it. You can not do any of it. I don't care. This is just some info for you guys to maybe give you an idea on ways that you can do it. So without further ado, here we go. And the first and foremost and most important would probably be you and your partner's attitude on the whole situation, on the camping, on the overlanding. So what do you be it? It's super important to manage your attitude, your expectations, and understand that has a big play in what's going on and what happens. So make sure your attitude's taken care of. Make sure that you have a positive attitude when you need to. And, the next, which falls into my next thing, make sure you guys are working as a team. Very, very, very important to work as a team, as a couple, especially when you have a young kid around. A little background on me. I have a 11-month-old son named Jasper, and I have a beautiful wife named Sienna, and we have been doing this since Jasper was 3 months old. I realize that is pretty early for some people, and I want to reassure some of you that I had waited to where I felt was a safe time to take him out for the first time. And I mean that in multiple ways. I waited until it was warm enough that he wouldn't freeze. And I waited until he was fully able to turn himself around, with his own weight, and until he was old enough to be able to hold his head, mostly. So that's a big one. At that point, Jasper was not sitting up on his own, but he was holding his own head up, and he was able to roll. So for me, that was very important, and I honestly would recommend not doing anything earlier than 3 months or 4 months. And, obviously everyone's child is different. If your kid is repetitively lifting its head, he is rolling, he is balancing himself and keeping himself out of certain situations, make that call yourself. I am not your doctor. But what we did is we waited until that happened. And that was around 3 months, 3 to 4 months. And, we took him out. And this kind of pushes into my next piece of advice for you, is that we took him out to a local campground. Camping, overlanding, backpacking with a kid, it's going to be different than what you're used to. And the best and safest place to do it is at a local place or even your backyard. And you want to make sure your kid is able to do it in the first place. I don't see why they wouldn't be, but it's better than going, 500 miles and finding out that this is not going to work. So the other piece of advice is taking him out to a local campground, or him, her, whatever, to a local campground and trying it out in a safe environment. When you don't know, there's so many, unknowns with camping at that young age. You want to be as safe as you possibly can starting out. So that the first 2 months we spent local campgrounds, something that was within 30 minutes of a hospital or so. And that can be a part of your planning, honestly. There's plenty of campgrounds that are somewhat close to hospitals that you would be good with. So, those are my first couple, working as a team, keeping a positive attitude, keeping your first couple camps close to home. And then, some more advice I would say is gear-wise, your gear is going to change, and what you need is going to change. You're going to need something to warm milk. You're going to need a place for your kid to sit and eat. You're going to need, multiple blankets, multiple towels, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But you're going to need a lot more than what you're used to packing, and maybe you pack minimally. You're going to realize that that's going to change, and, that's okay. You just need to plan for it. So let me help you. The first things that you want to pack when you're packing for your child, of course, diapers, butt cream, wipes, formula, and then you get into other things like medicine. You want to have everything that your kid's going to need. Children's Tylenol for fevers. You're going to want gripe water, gas relief, constipation relief, any of that kind of thing, which I think is gripe water. So you want to make sure that you're well prepared medicine wise for that. So you have your diaper cream, you have your diapers, you have your medicine, you have your thermometer, you have everything you need to diagnose and take care of that child, and anything else, is you need to go somewhere else, right? So, of course, you should have a first aid kit. Of course, you should, have a little changing pad or something like that. So you're not changing him on the ground or on a picnic table. That, is, that's more of a courteous thing. People eat off of it. I know it's outside. I know it's outdoors, but it's just like a common courtesy. And, maybe the baby booty gets a splinter. You don't want that. So, making sure you're packed right, making sure that you have packed enough clothing. If your baby typically goes through one outfit a day, pack 3. I'm an over prepper. I will stand on this hill to the day I die, especially about having infants, that if your kid normally goes through 1 or 2 changes of clothes and you're going to be out for, let's say, 3 days, a weekend, then 2, 4, 6, if you need 6, you need 9. Like if he only goes through 1 outfit a day, you have 1, 2, 3 outfits, double that, and then add 3. That's what I do. And I have never ran out of outfits for my son. The worst thing is when you're out in the middle of a camp trip and you are out in the middle of the woods and you run out of outfits, socks, undies, shirts, because your kid is throwing up, spitting up, playing in the dirt, getting nasty, getting wet. There's a long list of reasons on why your kid's clothes have to be changed. Blowouts, number 1. So pack more than you need and more than you think that you need, because you might go through it. So when you're packing this, I suggest all putting this in one bag. Try not to pack it with your own stuff. It's a lot easier to take the baby's bag in with you in the tent. You have a diaper bag that has all of the medicine, the diapers, the cream, the wipes, the extra clothing, bottles, formula. And if you can't fit all the formula with you, just throw a couple in some Ziploc baggies, pre-measured. We used protein powder, little protein powder storage cups for ours. That worked really well. And we figured how many we would need between, the past couple days, and then how much she breastfed. And that was just to put in the diaper bag. We had formula in the truck, but if we didn't want to get out of the tent, we wanted to mix it up in there. We obviously had water, we had formula, and we could do that. We got really lucky. Our baby doesn't care. Early on, he didn't care the temperature of our formula, so we didn't have to warm it up all the time, which brings me into my next tip. Make sure you have a bottle. Make sure you have bottle cleaners. I have a dedicated bottle brush just for my son. I don't use on any other campwear, and I do disinfect it once a weekend probably. If you were to ask someone else, or maybe a little bit more of a, how would I put it, helicopter-y mom, or a little bit more careful mom, that doesn't mean you're wrong. Doesn't mean it's bad. It just means you're a little bit more careful. If you were to ask them, you should be, using a bottle brush and boiling your bottle to decontaminate and kill off all the germs. And I'll be quite honest, we didn't do that really. Not unless the bottle got really dirty or fell down. We did not boil the bottle to decontaminate or sanitize it. We did clean it very well with a bottle brush and some Dawn, and rinse it very well. And that was it when we camped. Yes, we have a jet boil. We could boil the water. Did we? No. And you know what? Jasper came out fine. He's still okay. Everything went well. If that's what you want to do, do it. We don't. So moving on. The other thing is having toys, having things to play with. When he was about 4 to 6 months, he was starting to teeth a little bit. And be prepared. Teething is a whole nother game plan. You'd find it pretty easy to camp when you're young, when he's younger, because he can breastfeed primarily, but when he's teething, he's starting to eat a little bit of mixture of puree. Things change a little bit. So, it's not easy when the baby's teething, and that is probably one of the most stressful times for camping, that I can think of, that for us anyway. He's always sick. He's clingy. His nose is constantly running. He is slobbering everywhere. Hence the 9 pairs of clothing, extra clothes. And then, it's not easy. But do I regret doing it? Not at all. It's completely doable. Everyone's baby's different. Everybody's patience threshold is different. My wife and I are a very good team. We handled it pretty well. We dosed the kid with Tylenol as needed to help manage the fever. and we kept teething toys in Ziploc bags in the cooler and then in the fridge after I upgraded to help with teething. So very important. You need something he needs to chew on, something to help relieve some of that pressure. Another tip that we ended up doing was celery. Celery, and then, asterisk, big warning sign, is an allergen. So don't try celery out the first time if you're out in the middle of a campground. Try it in the comforts of your home. Make sure that celery isn't going to make your child break out in hives or react in some way, because it is an allergen. Might not be one of the well-known ones, but it is an allergen. And then obviously keep an eye on your child on any kind of food that can break off into pieces and lodge in their throat. Common sense, I know. And so using celery was kind of our saving grace. There was a lot of pieces. We broke them off into 5 to 6 inch pieces, give or take, cut the ends off, the little dirty ends, and we let them gnaw on the celery, the cold celery. And another really good thing about celery is that it has numbing agents that are safe, safe enough. It's just I don't know exactly what it's called, analgesic. I'll probably fucked that up, how I say that up, but it's got a numbing agent that actually helps as a pain reliever for the child. So it's a double duty, man. It's helping with teething. It's helping numb the gums up a little bit so that it doesn't hurt as much. And it just worked, man. We went on a 1,200-mile trip and he ate celery 30-40% of this trip in his hand constantly. So keep that in mind. Again, watch your kid, and to recap and to make sure that this is instilled, it's an allergen. Try allergens and stuff that are allergens at home. If you're going to try peanut butter sandwiches, do the peanut butter sandwiches at home first. If you're going to give him a little lick of that peanut butter and you haven't tried to see if he's allergic to peanut butter, shame on you. Do not take him out in the middle of the woods and not try that first. So try your allergens or any planned allergens before you leave. And when he's teething, make sure you bring enough stuff for his teething, his fever. And then so now we get into, cool, you've packed, you have enough clothes, and you have everything to help him with his teething. You have formula, you have puree. And then, if you want my advice, take it or leave it. We started him out breast milk, and then a little bit of infant cereal. And as he got older, especially the teething area, once he starts showing those signs of wanting some other food, he'll start licking his lips, he'll show interest in the food we're eating. That's when we started him on, breast milk and infant formula. So as we did that, we slowly transitioned him and mixed the ratio of breast milk to infant formula higher and higher as he got more comfortable and older to be able to deal with it. Obviously, you want him to be able to swallow it. And by the time that we got to puree, it was pretty thick. It was about the thickness of a puree is what we stopped at for breast milk and infant cereal. So now that we're in puree, we're in first foods, and I'm using Gerber's first foods, like their measuring system. We're in first foods, and now we're in a really thin puree. We're going to start them on that puree for however long that you feel comfortable with and that they are comfortably eating at. Once they feel like they're really moving through that puree, start adding infant cereal to make it a little thicker. And we're going to do the same thing with the infant cereal that we did with the milk, and we're going to slowly move the mixture up as time goes, and as they feel more comfortable eating, you'll see that they'll struggle less, and they'll do better. And all the while, make sure that you are alternating and using a wide variety of different foods. Do not keep them at apple. Do not keep them at pear. Make sure that every week you're trying a new food. You're doing apples, peas, pears, carrots, broccoli, tomatoes. Blend your own food. Make sure it's very thin. Make sure it's, edible. And blend your own food at home too. As they get older, thicken it up. As they get more comfortable, thicken it up. Start adding puffs. Start adding melts. Start adding, softer foods that they can eat by themselves. I overcook noodles, small noodles. Keep in mind the size of their airways, and try to keep everything under that. The most dangerous foods that you can give a kid: hot dogs, grapes, anything spongy that can conform to their airway and the throat. So make sure that you're sticking away from that. Or if you want to do a hot dog, fine, but you need to be doing very small pieces, very, very, very small. If you think it's not small enough, then cut it smaller, and that's usually a good gauge. So that's just a quick food camping and food update or advice, and that's how we weaned him and got him through the food and mostly out breast milk by the time that he's 11 months. So we did that throughout camping. So obviously, if If your child is within that age range that is starting to transition into puree and then thicker puree, keep some infant cereal, just keep it in the truck, keep some puree on deck, and there's your your transition, your advice as far as food goes. And that doesn't just have to play out, obviously that doesn't just play out for camping. That's more of a all along the line. That's what I did, and that's maybe that'll help you out a little bit on finding that out for you. So we move past your your prep, your teamwork with your partner, and some of the food stuff that you're packing. Pack extra pads or blankets for them to play on the grass. When they're younger, they're just going to grab handfuls of stuff and shove them in their mouth. Watch that. Pebbles, grass, charcoal. We had our kid eat a piece of charcoal once. It's all somewhat normal. Don't freak out, but make sure that you're watching what they're doing. If you have enough room for like a playpen, do that. We didn't, so we just used a large blanket. And make sure that you have like a large blanket for your like their laying area too. If you prefer a bassinet, if you don't like co-sleeping, that you can definitely find bassinets on Amazon that only have the floors, or that you could stand alone without your stand. So make sure that you have extra towels, blankets for them to lay on, and your bassinet. I would also recommend bumbo seats. Personal recommendation from me. Once they can sit up on their own and keep their their head and their back up, bumbo seats are great for feeding. You can feed them anywhere. You can throw them on a folding chair and face them towards you. So what my wife would do a lot of the times is I would set up our folding chairs, and she would put my folding chair opposing to me, and she would feed them like that if we didn't have a picnic table. But towards the beginning, we were using, going to a lot of state parks. Most of them had picnic tables, so we could set up our chairs at the picnic table, put him in the bumbo so that he was nice and sturdy and safe, and feed him. And it was like eating as a family at a dinner table. So the bumbo was really nice for that. And it's not a high chair, so you don't have that big folding mess. And we really liked that. So there's your other thing. Also, when you have a cooler or a refrigerator, make sure you're bringing storage containers for breast milk. If your wife, significant other is producing breast milk, and make sure that you have a way to store that so that it stays fresh and stays okay. A lot of the times my wife would feed the kid directly, and she was overproducing so much that we ended up having to get rid of some of it. It sucks, but that was just kind of how it went at first. So making sure that you have a good storage system for that, as well as like I said earlier, making sure you have a way to warm up breast milk if your baby doesn't like it. I have a jet boil. Obviously, you don't want your kid's milk to be boiling, but it does warm your kid's milk up, as well as like a Coleman camp stove would. So make sure you have a way to warm it up. Make sure you have storage solutions for your milk. If you have to sanitize and disinfect, make sure you have a way to do that, like a pot to boil the bottles in. Have dedicated bottle brush. And then it brings me to, other than your bumbos, towels. Why do you need towels? The most, best way that I can put this is your baby is going to spit up at one point while you're camping. Whether you're lucky and that's on you, or you're very unlucky and it's on your sleeping bag, it's going to happen. So just be prepared. Don't get frustrated. It happens. It's part of the game. And yeah, my extra advice is to you is if you're sleeping with your child in a sleeping bag, or you're sleeping with your kid in the bassinet, use a towel as a sheet, or use a towel to put inside the sleeping bag with you. We did co-sleep with our child, and we don't give a shit what others people think about that. That's what we did, and it worked out very well for us. But we did co-sleep with the kid in the sleeping bag with us, and we had a towel a lot of the times in the sleeping bag under the kid, so that if he did spit up at least a little bit, or any kind of bodily fluids, he peed through his diaper, then we had at least a chance to save the sleeping bag, so that it wasn't bad all weekend. But that's where synthetic and non-down sleeping bags are kind of great, because if something did happen, which we've had happen, you can just run to the laundromat. There are laundromats in most towns, most small towns. Run to the laundromat for 30 minutes, have someone grab groceries, wash your sleeping bag, and bring it back. It goes back to the glass half full mentality, working with your partner and your attitude. Make sure that you guys are all on the same page and you're trying to do this together. So we put a towel out there, and if he puked, then we dealt with that. And if it was so bad that we needed to take it to the laundromat, we did. So we really like having a couple extra towels. Just think of them. I brought 3 towels. I brought one for me, one for the baby, and one for the Sienna. And we used, we used one of them for the sleeping bag. Kept the other ones if we took a shower or anything, and that was it. So we got your bumbo, we got your food, you're packed, you got all that in the truck. And then now it comes to my advice is as a team, figure out who's going to do what and work together. So for me, my wife and I have a dynamic that works really well for us. Might not work well for you, but that's your job to figure it out together as a team. So my wife and I primarily deal everything with driving, with the truck, with organization, with the packing, because I like to know where everything's at. I like the organization, and it bothers me if it's out of place. So I do that primarily, and she lets me. And so her job is to, especially when it was younger, to take care of the child and to make sure the child's needs were well thought of and taken care of. So at that, 3 to 10 months, it's all about mom. The kid doesn't have much autonomy. They don't really know that they're separated from their mother. Deep down, they don't really feel that way. They still feel like they're connected. So, for us, that was just kind of an easier way for us to go, okay, well, he's already, if he's going to get upset, what he wants. He wants mom, he wants boob, and he wants her for comfort. So that's an easy way for us to go, hey, maybe that's the role that we take. So, we took more of the traditional role, and so I when we get to our campsite, she'll take him out. She'll comfort him, get him ready, change him, do whatever we need to do. I take the tent out. I set up the tent. I put all the bedding into it, and then she gets in there with the baby, and she puts the bedding together. So it's not super hard. Sometimes the baby crawling around can be annoying, but it's not crazy. It's not super labor intensive. The tent's already made. The rain fly's already up. She had a chance to relax a little bit with the baby beforehand. Now she can chill with the baby inside the tent, get the bedding ready. And while she's doing that, I am cooking. I'm getting, the chairs out. I'm getting the mosquito stuff out. I'm getting any kind of stuff that we need for the night. The bathroom, our little pop-out shower taken out. I'm setting everything up to make it as comfortable and to set camp up as efficiently as I can while she sets up the bedding. So usually she's got the bedding all done by then. She can go and relax in the chair with the kid while I cook dinner. I make the kid the food, and let's just play this out. He's at his 6-month mark. He's eating purees. So I'm making food for him, putting it into his little bowl. Another thing you should have is a little cutlery for your baby. Just makes it a little easier. Or just use the cup that it came in. We do that a lot too. We'll just pour the infant cereal into the puree cup, mix it up, and that's usually plenty for him. He's fine. So we'll mix that up in there. I'll have that ready, and she'll feed him in the bumbo seat on the picnic table. And I'll have food ready and cooked so she can eat that as well. And then I typically eat much faster than her. So I'm done in like a minute. And then, so I take over feeding the baby while she finishes her food. And then that's how we run it. We get done doing all that. She takes the baby back into the tent or back out to the fire area, wherever she's at. I clean up dishes. I close up camp, close up the food for the night, go in the tent, and the baby sleeps with her in the sleeping bag to stay warm. And that's pretty much how we do it. And it's pretty much the exact reverse way when we're packing up. She sits in the tent, packs the stuff up while the baby's crawling around. I pack all the accessories and all the big stuff up because I like to have it in a certain way so I can find it when I need it. And that's it. I mean, it's really good for us to have our little team and to have our dynamic that way, and it works for us. So find that way that works for you guys. Do your best. Keep the positive attitude. Make sure that you guys are keeping each other's buckets full, as they say. And if you notice that someone's attitude, someone's mentality is dragging or it's getting really hard, pick up the slack and do better, and they'll do the same for you. And at the bottom line, if you guys are both having a terrible time, the kid's constantly crying, you're just having a crap time, go home. I mean, it's okay to go home. It's okay to live and fight another day. It's okay you're not quitting. You're not a failure. And I'm only saying that because sometimes I felt like that when we just couldn't do it. There were times where Jasper was teething that maybe we just were not having a great time. We're both stubborn, so we didn't pack up, but there were definitely times where we wanted to. And honestly, we probably would have had a better time at home than we were camping, but we're both stubborn. We both wanted to be out there and we both wanted to do it. So, just remember that it's okay. Remember that remember that your baby also grows at a different pace. So a lot of the things that I'm talking about is based on my experience with my son, and your kid is going to be completely different, or maybe he's similar or she's similar, and that's okay. Everyone grows at their own pace, and that's okay. So with that being said, if you're not ready to take your child out at 3 months, absolutely okay. No shame. If you're not ready to take your kid out after 6 months, absolutely okay. No shame. There's no shame about it. So it's kind of the great thing about this camping overlanding world is that 90% of these other overlanders and campers have done the same thing, have lived the same thing, and have great advice to help you get through it too. I mean, I'm just one of many. I was really worried at first that some of these other guys that I camp with and overland with would, be upset that my kid's crying part of the night, and I always ask, hey, was it okay? And they said, dude, stop worrying. We've had kids. We get it. We're not going to yell at you. We're not upset about the fact that you have a kid that you're crying, that he's crying. You're out here, you're doing it. A lot of people are the same way. And just remember that when you're out there, especially at state park campgrounds, who cares? Dude, people run their generators all night. They have dogs, their kids are screaming. Who cares? The state parks are the Walmarts of camping, so don't even worry about state parks. The only time that I really worried was when I was group camping, group dispersed overlanding, and I didn't want to wake other people up. And you know what? They all have kids, and most of them get it, or they love kids and they don't care. Obviously, if it bothers you that much, position yourself at the farthest away. I would put my tent on the other side of the vehicle so that it wouldn't bother anyone. It would help, drown out the crying or something. But, the kid also stayed in mom's arms most of the time, so he didn't really have a lot of downtime crying. And the cowlick, we solved that a lot of the times early on before he was, into his teething phase. So keep that in mind. And, take everything I say with a grain of salt too. Cherry pick what you want, keep what you don't. And a lot of this, it transfers over to overlanding camping and even backpacking. Backpacking's a lot of the same. The only extra advice I would have with backpacking is that to get a really comfortable and safe for the baby's hips child carrier in practice before you go out and do these long hikes too, because this child carrier that you think might be great, it's not the same as a backpack, man. It's going to feel a little different. We started with a child carrier and quickly moved to a backpack because it was better on our shoulders, better on our back. And we went with the Deuter Kid Comfort, and we really liked it. It was a very, very expensive investment. But you know what? I don't think any other backpack would have done better. So we really like it. It's got the sun shields, got really good frame, really good back support. And I'm a bigger guy, so it fits me well. And like I said, it's a lot of the same thing, except for, the husband or whoever that's carrying the most weight, or who can carry the most weight, is carrying for himself, he's caring for the partner, and he's caring for the baby. So in our case, I carried clothes for me, clothes for my wife, clothes for my baby, extra diapers for the baby. I was in the base camp, of the baby. So I had any medicine, cream, milk, like the formula, and water. Carried all that. And mom carried baby, a diaper, a changing pad, and some wipes. And that would equal out to about the same, because carrying a baby weight-wise might be lighter, but it's not the same. So my other tip is to use pacifier tethers, the little silicone ones you can get at like Meijer, Walmart, and use those not only for pacifiers, but use them for toys. Hang them off the backpack. So when the kid's done playing with his toys, you can just throw them down, and it falls to the side of the backpack, and you don't have to keep picking it up. So tethers, really nice. Tether your teethers to it. Super great. The other thing I would say is to have a pocket mirror. Miranda Goes Outside, I believe it is, or Miranda Goes Hiking. It's a YouTube channel. She does one episode where she hikes with a kid, and she recommends doing having a pocket mirror on your shoulder strap so that you can look at your pocket mirror and look at the kid behind you on your back and see what's going on. So, see if their hat fell too far down. That's an absolutely fantastic idea. We found ourselves taking the backpack off or craning our necks constantly. So we're even using our phone's camera to look back. So it'd be really nice to have a little pocket mirror sitting there. So all great ideas. Like I said, take them or leave them. For backpacking, those were my main advice. My other big thing is to remember that you're backpacking with a kid now, and that these 20-mile hikes probably aren't going to happen. Not like you think. You're not going to cover 20 miles in a day, and if you do, congrats, but you're not going to do it at the same time frame. Don't expect to cover 20 miles in 10 hours. It's not going to happen like that. Again, if you're a super person, cool, good for you. Not happening for the average person. If we had a, let's say a 5-mile loop that we would do, backpacking or hiking, that would take us much longer than it typically would just walking around. You have to remember, your baby is going to get restless. It's going to want out. It's going to want fed. It's going to want rocked. It's going to want comfort. And a lot of babies don't love sitting in a backpack for hours. So just realize that if it's going to take you 3 hours to hike this loop, it's going to take you 4.5 hours to hike this loop. And to be prepped for that, especially if you're going out like after work, and like we would go after work and do like an hour hike, it would turn into an 1.5 to 2 hour hike pretty quick with how much the baby wanted to get out. He would get fussy. You have time to change him, make him a bottle or feed him while we're sitting. So keep that in mind. That's very important. And we went over overlanding, hiking, backpacking, kind of the same thing. Camping, we went over food, some things to prep. What else? I think that's all that I have off the top of my head. This is all unscripted, so I'm thinking of things as I'm talking, which is why I tend to drift off and go off course quite a bit. So, but I think we covered the basics, and at the end of the day, getting outside and doing it is the most important step that you can do. You figure out what you need later, and a lot of what I've said is stuff that I figured out after. But I still got out and did it. So, get your basics, make sure the baby's fed and taken care of, and get out there, to do some safe conditions, do it in your backyard, do it at a state campground, figure out what you need as you go. And you know what? Have fun, keep that positive attitude, and remember that it's okay to quit. It's okay to come back to this at a different time. If it's too hard to do it when they're 3, 4, 5 months old, come back when they're 5, 6, 7, 8 months old. I mean, it's not always about just pushing through and looking good about it. It's about you having fun. It's about the baby having a good time too. And for me, I think I started so early. The day that he was born, I had forest sounds, rain that played out as loud as I could, unintentionally. But I think I was getting him ready for all this. Because when he came out for the first time, one, he's a FOMO baby. He spent all day looking at the trees and the grass and having, soaking all of it up the first time. It was amazing. But 2, it didn't really bother him. Nothing bothered him. He could sleep with it being loud out. The rain on the tent, which I did play a lot of the times to help him come to fall asleep before we even ever went camping. I would put like rain on the tent sounds or rain in the forest, and play those not loud, but loud enough that normal talking volume for inside of a room. And I would play those loudly because, sleeping in silence, you don't want to do that for a baby because they get used to that silence. So the equivalent of sleeping with a fan on, you're used to the hum. So to me, I was used to having the rain and camp sounds like that. I wanted to do the same for him. And I think it worked out. Honestly, I do. He can sleep in just about anything right now. He slept during the fireworks at our 4th of July, slept right through them, and we were maybe 100 feet from him. So, I think that's really important too. But yeah, other than that, getting him accustomed to camping and sleeping in a tent and the sounds, that's very important, too. And I think that kind of wraps it up. I appreciate you guys listening in on here. This was a pretty long episode for what it was supposed to be, but I just had all this information, I guess. So thanks for tuning in to Botches Off-Road on this special little podcast about taking your baby out, camping, overlanding, and hiking. And I hope to see you guys out here on some of these next episodes. We got some really cool stuff coming up. We have some interviews coming up with some important people. We just did an interview with Benji at Newfound Overland, formerly Budget Overland. and we have someone coming on here that's talking about some of the North Carolina stuff, what she witnessed, and some of the relief aid that some of our off-road groups provided. So super happy to have her on here. And that's just the start, man. This is only like our 5th, 6th, 7th episode. So yeah, I mean, there's nowhere to really go but up. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to Botches Off-Road. Check out my socials. Check out Alex's socials. Check out Mark's socials. And we'll see you next time.